Lisa here. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to my kind of not quite weekly deck reviews this month. So if you tuned in last time I made one of these, I will link it up in the cards in case you haven't seen it yet. I am actually working with just one tarot deck all month this month, and it is the Alchemical Tarot, the renewed 4th edition by Robert M. Place. I knew that I was going to want some serious quality time with this deck, so I'm working with it through the entire month of January, but I thought it might be nice to do kind of a mid-month or near mid-month check-in. I mean, I guess it's the 11th, so it's like 30% of the way into the month, but math, so moving right along. One of the reasons I wanted so much quality time with this deck is that it came with this ginormous book. It didn't come with, I bought this separately. I said that weird, but it came, I ordered with it this book, which is the Tarot, Magic, Alchemy, and Hermeticism and Neoplatonism 2nd edition, which has a guide to the Waite-Smith Tarot, the Alchemical Tarot, and the Tarot of the Sevenfold Mystery. Now, I don't have the Tarot of the Sevenfold Mystery, so I've been working with it with just the Alchemical Tarot. I have taken a look at the Tarot of the Sevenfold Mystery, and at least at this point, I don't think it's one that I'm going to scoop up, but I'm really loving the Alchemical Tarot. So let's talk first about my progress with the book. So today when I'm filming this and is Saturday the 11th of January, this video is probably going up today, maybe tomorrow, we'll see how it goes. But I am actually, I would say about 2/3 of the way through the book. So I've actually read all of, like, I'm pretty much into the card descriptions now. And I'm up to the Justice card. And I have to tell you, this book is chock full of really good stuff. There's a lot of really great illustrations in here. The history of the tarot and the prehistory of the tarot, by which I mean a lot of the Hermetic and Neoplatonism background. And I'm really bad at explaining this stuff, but that sort of history and that background before we even get into cards being made, it's all relevant, and I think Robert does a really great job of taking you through that without it being super overly heady. I mean, I did feel kind of like I was reading a history book, so it reads like that, but I found myself really fascinated because I started to understand, as I was reading this sort of prehistory, I was starting to really understand where a lot of the philosophies and the thinking that possibly went into the creation of the tarot came from, or at least some of the symbols and some of those associations, and I'm sure that that was intentional on his part. So the meatiest part of the book really is that first, say, 2/3, which is chapters 1 through 13, because chapter 14 we start to get into a card-by-card analysis. And what's really exciting is when you get to the card-by-card analysis, you start to see where he's drawing these connections between stuff he's talked about in earlier chapters and how that stuff plays out actually in the cards. The tarot nerd in me freaking has been loving this. I've got like a sticky note because I keep referencing this recreation of the 15th century Tarot of Ferrara because that gets referenced a lot in the card descriptions. Some other cool things that I have bookmarked in here are a section on archetypal numbers, which gets into sort of numerology from the perspective of all this prehistory stuff. And another section that I really liked was the 4 functions, which kind of is, it's like a precursor to the Myers-Briggs personality type stuff, but there's a chart in here that kind of describes it, but there's 4 main functions that he talks about: thinking, sensation, feeling, and intuition, and he links those with the elements, or they are linked with the elements, and this is something that I've been really enjoying referencing back to pretty regularly, so I really like that section. And then in the back I have bookmarked 2 little things that are in like the appendices, or appendices? How do you say that in plural? Appendices. Somebody's going to tell me in the comments, but I think it might be appendices. One is the glossary of alchemical symbols, which is really useful because those are referenced throughout the deck. And then also a fun little add-on that I discovered when I was sort of just randomly touring the book, and that is there's also an appendix with all of the Lenormand cards and keywords, which is fun because I'm also working with Robert M. Place's Lenormand deck this week, which I'll talk more about in just a second. But the book has been, this is a lot of reading, you guys. I'm pretty proud of myself because there's going to be no question that I'll finish this before the month is out. Now that I'm on to card meetings, I'm just kind of like almost speed reading because this is where it all kind of comes together, so it's the most exciting part for me to read now that I've read all this prehistory stuff. So this is an excellent book. This would be a really excellent book to read regardless of whether you have the Alchemical Tarot or not, I think, because it really gives you so much. And really the bulk of the book is all of the other juicy stuff and not even just the tarot. But when you get into the tarot section, he does use through the majors. He uses the Marseille. This is the Noblet version of the Marseille. He uses Pamela Coleman Smith's artwork from the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, and then he also has the tarot, the Alchemical Tarot and the Tarot of the Sevenfold Mystery referenced, and he does refer to the symbology of all of those images in each card description page or pages. So I think it's really useful. In the minors, he doesn't talk about the Marseille anymore. He just talks about Rider-Waite-Smith, Alchemical Tarot, and Tarot of the Sevenfold Mystery. But I'm not into the minors. I don't know how those read for the most part, but I have been, well, actually that's not true because I've been reading the page for every card I've drawn during my daily draws also. So I'm getting a good flavor. I say the dumbest stuff when I'm filming. I'm getting a good taste for Robert's writing style. I've been really enjoying this. I'm so glad I didn't let this scare me off and I actually read it, because this will probably be, when I'm done, the biggest tarot book I've ever read cover to cover. So that's pretty exciting and I've been really enjoying it. The deck itself has been an absolute joy to work with. I did damage one of my cards, so it has a little scotch tape holding it together in this upper corner because I totally ripped it. What I've been doing in my daily draws is I draw the card and then I read all about it in the book. But the Major Arcana has probably 4 or 5 pages for each card as opposed to just one. So I had been tucking my card of the day into the pages of the book while I was reading, and I carelessly had it sticking out and then crammed the whole book in my tote bag and totally destroyed it. But I reached out to Robert and he is sending me a replacement because I have also ordered his Tarot of the Magnum Opus, which is the sort of distilled version of this deck, because I think I'll really enjoy working with that as well. But he's sending me a replacement card for this deck with it, which is really, really nice of him. But anyway, this has been a really, really enjoyable deck to work with so far. It's really something that the part of me that loves to dive into symbology and loves to sort of learn about the deeper levels of the tarot has been really geeking out on this deck and on the guidebook. Everything that is on these cards is here for a reason. Everything has a meaning. A card I would love to talk to you guys about because it was really, yeah, here it is. This was one of my daily draws this week, and this is the Three of Wands. And this is really cool because it's a different depiction of the Three of Wands. He's illustrated here the ship coming in with one of these full wands all lit up. And then on the shoreline you have 2 wands. They're both lit up, but this one here is burning, but it's looking like it's burning near the bottom, like it's running out. And so there's this imagery of this new fresh wand coming in to sort of replace, I guess, this energy. And so you have this option to read this card like new energy or newness is coming in to sort of revitalize the project or to add to it. There's all kinds of different ways you can play with that imagery, but I really appreciated that and how thoughtful it was. And all of the cards are like that, like nothing is accidental. I love this Four of Swords. I will probably do a full deep dive walkthrough of this deck once I have worked with it for the whole month, because I think that's something that people might find helpful or useful. But I've just been really, I love the aces with their elemental sort of animals present. And I love all of the alchemical symbolism through the majors. I just really, really enjoy this take on the tarot. And it's something that just feels really rich and full of meaning, and I'm really, really appreciating that. Oh, I just finished reading my Hierophant card earlier this morning in the guidebook. Yeah, there's just so much good stuff here. I had a really cool reading actually where I had, it's hard to describe, but visually the cards clearly told a story, and I really appreciate that about tarot when it does it well, and this deck definitely does it well. So I will chime in again when I'm all finished with my time with this deck this month, but in the meantime I wanted you guys to have sort of how I'm feeling about it so far. I'm really, really enjoying it. So really fun to work with and learn with, and I'm really pleased also that I chose to work with this before I dove back into the Marseille, which I plan to do next month, because I think that this guidebook or this book and working with this deck is creating a bit of a foundation for more of that work as well, so that's pretty exciting. So also this month I'm working with Robert M. Place and Rachel Pollack's Burning Serpent Oracle, which is a Lenormand deck. This is what the tuck box looks like. I don't typically put my Lenormand decks in bags. I usually keep them on a shelf, so I don't plan to bag that one. This one right now is living in this little temporary bag. I'm gonna pick a bag for it soon. I just haven't decided what I want for it yet. But back to the Lenormand. So this is what the backs of the Lenormand deck look like. The Burning Serpent Oracle, that is Hermes. And this deck reads fantastic straight out of the box as a Lenormand deck. I love the art style. I think it's super clear. There is a play for sure on some of the, as you can see, like instead of our rider, we have Hermes the Messenger, our Scythe, and there's a couple other really good plays on here. I love that Lilies features a person with lilies. There's also 2 extra cards. There's an Isis and an Osiris card, which sort of speak to more divinity, which I love that there is sort of a god and goddess element in the deck. I think that's a really cool mechanic to play with. I love that the book is the Book of Life, and I love especially how detailed the guidebook is. And I didn't think I was going to get a lot of time to spend with this book, but actually I've been reading about every card whenever I pull my week ahead spread, which so far will be 6 cards out of the 36 because I've done 3 week ahead spreads. So I've already hit 9 of the 36 cards. I haven't really had any repeats yet. But this is very well done. I love Rachel Pollack's writing style, and on every card you get like quite a meaty section. So here's our Fox card, and you have 1, 2, 3, 4 and a bit full pages, and it just goes into detail about how different decks have interpreted that card, or how different approaches to the Lenormand have interpreted that card. But at the top of every page talking about them, you do get a quick little synopsis of the keywords that are recommended from these creators for the deck. I don't actually think they have one page that just has all the keywords. It doesn't look like they do. No, it doesn't look like they do. But they have that really detailed stuff about every one. However, in the big book that I'm working with, like I mentioned before, there is like a nice page that has just a quick reference guide for the keywords. And I also think that in the little white book, which this is what actually comes with the Burning Serpent Oracle, this is bought separately. In the little white book, you do have more of a like synopsis style keyword interpretations for all the cards. And there is an extra man and woman card in the deck as well, which I also appreciate. But yeah, I just have been really, really enjoying this. So what I'm doing right now is I pull 3 cards for a week ahead reading for myself with the Lenormand. That's how I'm incorporating this into my sort of regular practice right now. And I've really been enjoying this. This is probably one of my favorites that I've worked with. I really, really do enjoy it. And I love that art style. It's right up my alley. Still working with a 3-rune draw at the beginning of every week. So I'll draw 1 card for the energy of the week, 1 card for the obstacle, and 1 card for advice. And I'm still really loving working with runes in that way. Definitely enjoy the fact that I shook it up and I'm not doing them every single day, but instead doing like a more mindful, thoughtful pull at the beginning of each week. Now, what I've been doing as far as Oracle decks are concerned with the Alchemical Tarots, I have not been trying too hard to sort of match the Oracle deck to the tarot, because I just think that'd be kind of hard to do. But the first week that I was working with the Alchemical Tarot, I worked with Carolyn Mrs. Archetype cards beside it. Now these are, how do I put this gently? I don't like the look of these cards. I think they're unpleasant to look at, which I think seems overly harsh. I don't know, maybe it's because they're so word heavy and I don't particularly love this art style. Maybe I would if it took up more of the space on the card. But I do have to tell you that working with these as a daily draw and just randomly pulling an archetype and looking out for that particular energy to show up during the day was actually really, really helpful, and I really enjoyed it. I do find that these have a very psychological approach, which I've talked about in my Say Yes to the Deck when I was contemplating getting another archetype deck. These do have a very sort of psychological approach. They do feel like they kind of call you out, especially if you're looking at, okay, what archetypal energy is going to show up for me today. I always look at the light attribute and the shadow attribute, and I do think that the guidebook that comes with these cards gives you a little bit more to work on than just what's printed on the card. And I found these sort of more expanded meanings to be really helpful. So I worked with those. It did help me to be more mindful in how I was communicating and how I got caught up in my own story. Just looking out for that sort of shadow behavior was really helpful. And also just looking at how that archetypal energy might have shown up in other people in my life that day. It was really, really useful. And I enjoyed it. It felt very it didn't feel very spiritual, if that makes sense, but my tarot and oracle practice and Lenormand practice often feels very psychological, so that's fine, but I do think this is somewhat limited in its scope, and I certainly didn't feel at all any interest in doing a spread or pulling multiple cards at a time. I just wanted one because that felt like more than enough to work with for the day, and some of these felt like they didn't resonate, but they definitely gave me an opportunity to consider how that archetype may have in the past shown up for me or may show up for me in the future. So it was still useful. It just wasn't, it left me kind of wanting a little something more. I do think I'm going to continue to enjoy these and use these, particularly in certain types of ways. Maybe around journaling or journal prompts would be really helpful with this deck, but I don't really feel called to like work with it in any kind of spiritual capacity. So those are the archetype cards. That was what I worked with the first week. The second week, I worked with, finally, the Raven's Wand Oracle. Now, I've talked about this deck before because I bought it like in the summer, but I kept telling myself I wasn't going to work with these until I had finished the Stephen Hutton's trilogy that these cards are based on. However, I found myself kind of stalling out on that series a little bit. Like, I'm still reading them, but I'm really slow at reading fiction lately, and I just was tired of waiting, so I pulled them out. I will say though that it doesn't feel, these cards are really, really beautiful. This is what the backs look like. And they have these like oak and holly leaves on them. The artwork is really beautiful, and the type of characters you see in here makes sense when you've read the stories. Like you have sort of these witches that have a particular aesthetic, and then you have these sort of animal human kind of hybrid creatures. Let's see if I can find another one of those. I just had one up. Here's one. I forget what they're called in the books. Like in the Streaming Days, we have sort of this anthropomorphized cat or fox kind of creature. These kinds of creatures are in the stories, so that makes sense. I will say though, as much as I love these illustrations, and as much as they do remind me of the world of the books that these are based on, as an oracle deck, again, it felt kind of lacking. I don't know how else to describe it. I don't actually know if this is one I will ultimately keep in my collection or not, because I was kind of hoping that they would either very closely remind me of the stories or give me something completely fresh and new, and I feel like it tried to straddle both of those goals at the same time. So I feel like there's a lot of characters that are reminiscent from the books, at least so far. I'm about halfway into book 2 out of the 3 books. Some of these characters I do know, and some I haven't encountered yet, and I'm not sure if I'm even going to. I don't know if they're just supposed to be characters that remind us of the books, or if they are actually supposed to be characters from the books, but I felt like it was lacking in that way. Like, it didn't bring me right back into that world the way that I'd hoped it would, and it also didn't feel like something I could pull out or would want to pull out with no knowledge of the books and read with. So I was kind of in this weird limbo-y place with it. I'm probably going to try to work with these again after I have completely finished the books, but I don't know, it just didn't quite land the way that I wanted it to land. So we will see. But again, beautifully illustrated, and the messages in the guidebook are really, really nice. But yeah, there was something missing for me in this one for sure. Oh, and the name of the books are the Dark Raven Chronicles, and the first book is Raven's Wand, and this is called the Raven's Wand Oracle, in case you're curious. And I believe they are like a young adult series. Fairly easy to read and enjoyable. I just haven't been reading a ton of fiction lately. So that was that. And then starting this upcoming week, I'm going to be working with my Oracle of the Radiant Sun. So I started with that in this morning's pull, and I do have the out of print first edition, which somehow I managed to find another copy of and decided it was just meant to be in my collection. I really enjoy this Oracle deck. It's very astrological, and I actually feel like aesthetically this Oracle deck works really well, at least so far, with the Alchemical Tarot. I think because this is also fairly rich in symbolism, and it doesn't feel out of place because it's also not trying to be super modern. But yet there's still lots of great color. So yeah, I really, really enjoy that. And I feel like there's definitely there's a lot of overlay with astrology and tarot, and then the astrology in this Oracle, which works with the 7 planets. So the original, like, sort of ancient astrology planets are in here. I've worked with this deck before and really, really enjoy working with it. The guidebook was attached to the box that these cards came in, so I did very carefully just cut this guidebook out of the box that it was attached to, and I don't think you can even tell this was ever attached to a box. It feels like a regular book. That was one of my complaints I had about the first edition, was that the book was attached, and I do recognize that by slicing it, I've affected the value of this deck, and I don't care because I love it. So I've been really, really enjoying this one, and there's nothing like this really out on the market, I don't think. So I'll be working with that this week. I don't know yet what Oracle deck I'm gonna pull in for the last week. I may work with this one for 2 weeks because this is one that I really enjoy. And let's see, lastly, the reading cloth I used for the past couple of weeks is this really pretty fishy one, and it has the waters. So because these cloths are reversible, I used the fish side for the first week, switched it over to the waves side for the second week, and I've switched to a new cloth this week. I believe there's one of these still up in Peggy's shop unless somebody scooped it up, but this was so gorgeous. Look at these leaves. Isn't that stunning? It's like so vibrant. And then my clever wifey actually embroidered, see if I can block my face so it'll focus, here we go, little maple leaf patterns into the stitching, which just looks so cool. So pretty happy about that. So it's that on that side and this really cool brown pattern on the back. So I'm gonna be using this reading cloth for my readings this coming week, and I will probably just flip it and use the back side for the week after. So this will probably be my only check-in before the end of the month because I won't have a lot of new stuff to share until I've really sunk my teeth into this deck after finishing the book, which will be the last half of the month. And that is where I'm at with that. So I would love to hear what you have been working with over the past couple weeks, what you have coming up that you're working with. I really enjoy checking in with you guys and letting you know how the things I'm playing with are working for me, and I love hearing that stuff from you guys too. So thank you so much for hanging out. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and if you want to book a reading, you can do that at supportivetarot.com, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!